My name's are Okongo Samson. I was born in Kenya, East Africa, closer by Lake Victoria. I am number 15 out of 16. My parents had 16 children, 8 girls and 7 boys. I am so glad that I grew up in that family. It was not an easy kind of life having a large family, but it's also a good thing to have large family, because the benefit of helping each other was great. It was not a really wealthy family. We were pretty much poor. When I had shoes, I was 15 years old. I was going to school and walking about 4 miles every day to school. And that was our life. And then the journey continued, and Africa is more of communal life. So we were just used to this communal life where we stay together as large as we are, but at the same time we could have some of the relatives come stay with us. So we are pretty much a large family. My father was a teacher, and my mom was just a stay-at-home mom, taking care of many children. I personally have 3 daughters, and I'm a single father. So I love my daughters so much. And so it's a joy. It's a joy to be a father. When I was growing up, we used to be farmers. So we grow crops and also take care of animals. And a few times or more time, I was also hunting. So this we started when we were about to turn 5, is when we could go up to the forest to take care of animals, and it's part of the responsibility of being a boy. And so that was a nice life. And so it's really awesome to feel that you can be responsible even from that childhood. My father, my grandfather had many wives. As you know, in Africa, that's not a big deal. And so my father was the eldest of my grandmother. And so they grew up in that rural village, remote, primitive kind of life. And that's when and my father is still alive. He is 94 years old right now. Now, during the Second World War, when the British had gone into Kenya, they were recruiting people to go to the Second World War. As many of you are aware, most of the Africans do not even know when they were born. They don't know their birthday exactly, and they don't celebrate it crazily like we do here in our culture. So, but at that time, for you to be recruited to go to Second World War, you must have been 18 years old and above. Now, since Africans did not know their age accurately well, and plus communicating with the British was a little challenge, the way British people used to figure out how old they were was to find out if they have pubic hair. So if you have pubic hair, then you have reached that age where they could recruit you. Now, my dad, up to now, he's not a hairy person like I am. So he was of age, but he didn't have the hair, the pubic hair, because some people stay longer without. So that made him not be recruited to go to Second World War, of which that time the people who were recruited were going to Burma. Now, when they recruit you, you go. When you are not recruited because of lack of the pubic hair, they put you into a camp. Meanwhile, preparing you and hoping that you reach that age where they could send you. Now, at that time, when the colonial people came, the missionaries also came at the same time. Now, my father, instead of being put in the camp, he was relocated and made to stay with the missionaries. So he was working with the missionary, doing their farm work, meanwhile getting ready for all that. The missionary trained him to be a teacher, and that's how he became a teacher. And it's through that how he became a believer. So it was through the missionary who were keeping him. So that is how my dad had that influence of the missionary and of his faith. Now, and so, we pretty much were raised according to how he was raised by missionaries. But you see, that's not how people connect with their faith, with their God. So it's totally personal how and when you connect. But that's how he was raised. And so, so on a daily basis, from childhood, when we wake up, we would be just working the same way my dad was working in the farm, in the missionary, and the way he was taught. I would say it was pretty much more legalistic, which is kind of more of what was there at that time. But it was a worthwhile investment they made in him. And so hence he impacted us into that life, to the point where all my brothers, they are all taking part in the mission of what we do, to serve and reach the community. They are a part of this great vision. I mean, it's because of how our dad raised us. And so we grew up together. One of the things that I embrace, that I cherish mostly, we never fought. As much as we were a large family, we never fought as a whole family. And my brothers, we get along together, and we used to eat together. In a dinner or lunch, we never had our own plate, so we share a plate where all of us dip our finger in the same hole, and so we didn't have much. I remember also we used to celebrate a lot and look forward to Christmas, and also the resurrection, the Easter, because those 2 weekends we knew we would eat chicken, because meat was a luxury to eat unless we go hunting, which of course that would send us boys to go hunt as much as we can, because that's the only way to really get meat. And so, but the days that we would eat chicken, which was really a delicacy even now, was Christmas and the Easter weekend. So that's basically how we grew up, and it was. I still believe in that. I still once in a while put my children where we could eat in one plate and rejoice. It reminds me of that root. It reminds us of one togetherness. As much as some people may have a different opinion, but it's what we grew up. So we never fought. We still get along together, and so those are kind of some sweet memories that I cherish so much. Yeah. When I was 15 years old, I became a believer. I became a believer following Jesus Christ. However, my parents were going to church and they were believers. And that was quite an amazing decision to make. Around about that time, after I became a believer, one night I heard God's voice telling me, I want to use you to the uttermost part of the world and many villages to bring transformation to the many people who are in need, and address their needs spiritually and physically and a holistic way. At that point, it really did make sense to me, because I grew up in a home and a situation and a community where we were struggling physically, even to have clothes, to see people have food. And then spiritually, I just connected myself with God, and I realized that I was having void without God. So I could easily resonate with the two, addressing the spiritual need and the physical need of the people together, and not only to myself and my community and my family, but to the uttermost part of the world. At that time, it was a little crazy, because I never understood what that is, because coming from that background, I had never gone to cities or other countries before. So it was pretty new, and so I was asking myself questions. How can that be, yet I'm poor? How can that be, yet I don't know what uttermost part of the world is? How will I reach there? This is something that sounded like a vain dream or vain imagination. But God's voice kept on saying, I want to use you to the uttermost part of the world. During that time, I was going to school as well. And in the midst of going to school, I kept on sharing my faith and my testimony and what God had done to me. When I turned 17, I decided to go on a mission trip to northern Uganda. And that was the first mission trip outside of my own native Kenya. When we went to northern Uganda, we were part of the victim of Joseph Kony. And so our van was abducted, and so we were captured. And I found myself in the forest with the rebel soldiers. That was quite a tough life to be able to witness what was going on there with the children that were there. But not only so, also to be a part of the experience of what they were going through in that life. It was pretty sad to see young girls and boys being tortured and being used in many ways to fulfill some of the physical needs of the soldiers, and also being trained to go fight in the front line. So during the time that I was part of that, I was living a miserable life. I remember the day that they were to come and take us to go to the front line, as now we were recruited to go fight. I knew pretty well that going to face the army, chances are I was going to die. And so I was smelling death, seeing death, and feeling that it's just a matter of time when we go there. And then also in the camp, in the forest with the military, the rebel military, the life that was there was also like death. It's like you are dying slowly because of the pain you are going through, the treatment you are getting day and night. And so I was seeing death as well. And we were so much protected that we could not escape. And whoever was trying to escape, as I remember and witnessed, were shot and they died. So in all the surrounding, I was seeing death. If you try to escape and if you continue to stay there, and then the next day we were being taken to the front line. Something spoke to me and said, why die without doing something? So I chose to walk one night out of the camp and allow myself to be shot dead as I escaped. And luckily enough, as I started walking out of the camp, the soldiers never shot me. I guess they were asleep. And so I walked until the nearest town, naked, because we were not allowed to have clothes, especially at night, based on the duties that you have to perform at night. And so I walked until the nearest market, which was roughly about 30 miles away. When I arrived there in the morning, many people were going to their businesses, and not many people were thrilled to move closer to a naked boy. And so, but one old lady really had compassion and gave me what we call a leso, which they wrap on their head and on their waist, and helped me wrap on that around my waist. And she guided me to the nearest police station, and that's where the van that we were in, taking us to Gulu, was abducted, and luckily enough, my passport and my documents were there. So it was a godly thing. I came back to Kenya and tried to recover. Now, during that time, still God's voice was clear that I want to use you to the uttermost part of the world, even though that first attempt was painful and did not go as I expected. And I have come to learn that sometimes I don't know what God expects other than to use you in any way. Now, when I came back to Kenya, I had more anger and resentment towards God for allowing what happened to me when I was in Uganda. and of course the journey that led to me going there. So I was angry at God, and I doubted His voice, I doubted His call, I doubted the vision He gave me. And in addition to that, I was also angry with men and women, and had resentment based on what men did to me. So I was at a loss at that time. And more so, I was also angry with myself. That did I really listen to God enough, or was that really my own voice? I was also angry with myself. So when I came back, I thought the place where I could find comfort and some kind of encouragement was the church. So I approached some of the pastors and the church leaders that I was a part of. I shared with them my experience of my mission, even though I came back early, and why I suffered the way I suffered. To my surprise then, at that time, I'm not surprised anymore, but to my surprise that time, they didn't welcome me so much. They even brought more doubt. They told me that it's clear that God never called you, because if God really called His own, He would not allow them to go through what you have gone through. We doubt whether that was God's voice. We doubt whether you are anointed of God. And not only did that kind of statement being said many times, not many people wanted to be closer to me based on the story of how I was treated, and so many people wanted to stay away from me because I sounded like I was more dirty and I was more messed up. Now that did not really become much of a good thing to encourage me. So I also developed anger and pain and resentment towards the godly people and Christian and pastors especially. And so I was there in that situation where I felt alone, I felt abandoned, I felt dirty, I felt not worthy before men and before God, and that was my life. While I was living that kind of life, God's voice still was clear. I want to use you to the uttermost part of the world to bring transformation to my people. At this time, I was listening to that voice with a lot more fear, with a lot more doubt, and a little bit more anger, considering the pain that I had just endured. I started my journey of living a life that's miserable and with fear. But it took God to come to my point of redemption when I realized my only way to make myself out of life is to be restored and be healed. Because at this time, I was someone who was sick emotionally. Emotionally, I was really not healthy because of the situation and what happened to me. And at the same time, I was not healthy spiritually because I didn't trust God, and I was doubting God. I was doubting my faith. I was doubting the call and the vision. And I was doubting the scripture because, that's what some spiritual people had said, if God really called you, then the scripture is wrong. So I doubted, and I was not in good shape. At the same time, I was not healthy physically, considering what torture you've gone through, both in all manners that men can do all that ugly thing to a man. I understand when a woman says they are raped. It's different when a man can talk about that story, and it is painful. And then at the same time, I wasn't healthy mentally. And of course, I grew up in a poor background, so basically our economic status was not healthy either. That's a sick kind of life when you grew up in a poor background. So I came to discover in my whole setup, emotionally, spiritually, socially, I was sick. I couldn't socialize with people because I fear people. I fear what men and women can do. I did not want to interact with people because what happened to me had messed my social interest with people. So in all round of life, I was not in good shape. However, God's vision was, I want to use you to the uttermost part of the world to bring transformation to my people spiritually and holistically, which is addressing their economic status, addressing their physical status, and addressing their emotional and spiritual altogether. And when those are addressed, then someone becomes a healthy person or a healthy society. And now, at this time, all these have happened to me in my initial going to one of the community in northern Uganda. I did not sit back long enough, but continue to share my testimony of what God did by saving me, and also a little bit sharing my story of the calamity and the pain I went through in northern Uganda. It was at that time when I learned that I could be healed, and my healing could only come when I take the initiative of forgiving. So up to now, I believe healing of any kind starts with forgiveness. I came to the point where I had to forgive myself with my doubt. I came to the point where I had to forgive and ask God for forgiveness for how I doubted Him and wonder whether He really existed when I was going through pain. So I had to ask Him to forgive me, and also I forgave what I felt God allowed me to go through. It came to a point where I had to let go and forgive men, that not all men would do that to other men and women. I had to come to a point where I had to forgive what men did to me and women. And it's just when I did that is when I realized the relief. And that's how I turn around. And it's still a process, and it's not an event. Forgiveness is not an event, it's a process. So that is how I got out of that situation, by letting go, by forgiving what happened to me. Now, as I was back in Kenya, God continued to open opportunity to speak in schools, speak in churches, speak in villages, and I never quit. And that led me to continue going outside of the country, to continue going to different communities, different villages where I was invited, and God opened opportunity in a way that I cannot even express. And going through that, right now I can say it has led me to go to 34 countries with the gospel, with the message of holistic transformation. Now, when I was doing that, I was also going to school where, as I mentioned, I did some medical background, so I would use that to go into some other country. So I worked as a medical missionary. And I even volunteered with Samaritan Pass, with World Medical Mission, working to Sudan and the region of East Africa for a while, and was one of their coordinator for the regional state. So that's basically how I ended up using those kind of professions to make ways to different places. And then I was more focused also to witnessing souls and doing church planting movement. Not the kind of church that we know here and we are used to. The kind of church I believe in is the church that is a community gathering under the tree, house churches, where it doesn't have to be a structure like what we are used to and we know. It's like the church in the early days meeting in the house of Mary. So that's basically the kind of church that worked in most of the countries that I was going, particularly Muslim background countries where, being a Christian and the church is not accepted. Now, in the process of that, I ended up going back to Uganda, going to Sudan, going to Ethiopia, even as a young man, and going to Eritrea and to the uttermost part of the countries within Africa. And that led me even going to the Middle East and Asia, spreading the gospel when God opened those opportunities. Now, in the process of doing all that, what happened to me in northern Uganda did not really end there. Going to some of those locked countries, I ended up being found guilty for spreading the gospel of Christ, which is illegal in some of these countries controlled by Muslims. So I ended up being in prison again, now for 15 times, including the Uganda. So I've been in prison 15 times in 15 different countries, and because of my faith, because I was found guilty trying to do underground churches beside what they perceive I was doing medical, which was a medical mission. So I had to endure that in different forms and different ways, and God rescued me in all many ways. And there's many stories that I can share in each of the country based on how I was treated and how I ended up into prison when I was found guilty of spreading the gospel. But right now, I see that that persistent in continuously listening and being obedient to the vision God gave me has paid off, because I can sit here and rejoice that there are so many people who have received life and have been connected and have become whole spiritually, physically, socially, and I have hope. The hope that when I went to Uganda and was abducted, I thought I would never had. The hope that many people have stories that you cannot even tell. And in the midst of that story, sharing this holistic life, the gospel of forgiveness, the gospel of redemption, the gospel of how holistic that God cares about our innermost part of the being and our outermost part of the being, and together we can grow and have a healthy life. To see that people have a smile out of that is something bringing rejoicing to my heart. So, but right now I do not doubt God's call and God's voice that He made when I was 15 years old, because I can now testify I've gone to these many communities, different countries, met different people with different dialect, different food, different taste, different understanding, different faith. But together they come to embrace this God that we serve, the God who created us in the first place. In the midst of some of the torture in some of the countries that I was in prison, countries like Eritrea, Sudan, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Malaysia, it's one thing to hear that people are going through tough time. It's another thing to experience it. It came with much pain, and kind of the same thing that resulted into me consistently not trusting men, because some of those times in prison I had to go through the same pain that I went through when I was in Uganda. And some of them were even physical, where you had to be tortured physically, where I felt like I was dead at some point. Some of the way they torture people or discipline you is their way, but it is unimaginable. It's inhuman. I remember when I was in Saudi Arabia, they had to drill my toe, as you can tell, this part here. So they drill both my legs and then put a piece of metal, and then you are hanged upside down. And so with those pain, when I was asked, do you still believe that Jesus is the Son of God? I had to lie. I had to say, I don't believe so. Do you believe that God existed except Allah? And I said, no. And it was because of pain that I chose to lie. Was I supposed to? No. Because Christ's voice said, I will be with you till the end. But I chose to lie. So, all that added to me being more angry with myself, that I would denounce, I would deny God, I would deny Christ, even in the midst of pain. And yet He said, I'll be with you till the end. And so things like that developed, where now I had resentment towards even myself, towards God, and towards the faith, and towards the vision, towards men, towards women. And so continuously I had to go through the process of letting go and forgiving. Just to make the story short, as a part of my healing and reconnecting, I can say that I have gone back to most of all the prisons. I was arrested in all those countries except northern Uganda, because Joseph Kony, is a rebel. He doesn't have any structure, so there's no way to connect. But all the other countries where I was arrested, God opened an opportunity for me to go back, and even though I went back to visit the prison and see where I was, mostly it was to go and tell the people who were there at that time that I've come to forgive you for what you did to me. When I did that is when I found the big log fell out of my heart and peace. And that's what has restored me to continue doing what I'm doing with the journey and with joy. So that is my journey, and up to now, we are still continuing to do that. Now, over the years, as I continue to serve God, God led me to establish a ministry which is now called Unite for Africa. And our vision and mission is still the same, is to go and bring transformation to community in a holistic way, addressing spiritual, social, physical, economical, in a way that is developing and empowering them, not just relief. So that's what we do, and we are registered here in the United States, and we are registered in a number of countries in Africa. And we have hundreds of leaders just working under Unite for Africa, with different churches partnering with us over there, continues to spread this good news and the gospel of transformation to different communities and bringing abundant life. So that's basically what we do in life. Now, I became a U.S. citizen in 2005 when I moved here. At that time, in the early 2000s, that time, I met a lady who came with InterVarsity, who coming for a short intern to the hospital where I was a part of, and I was helping run it, a mission hospital in the border between Kenya and Tanzania. And so when the InterVarsity came, that's when I met one of the ladies that was there, and we developed friends. And when we developed friendship, it eventually led to us getting married, which was a huge thing because I knew at that time I would not get married. And so she was at the University of Arizona at that time, and so we got married. And when we got married, it's when we decided to come and settle here in Tucson. And then eventually I became a U.S. citizen, and then my office of operating Unite for Africa was established from here. Now I started operating from here to the other parts of the countries that we work in. So that's how I moved here. But currently I'm a single father, as I had mentioned, with 3 children. The marriage didn't work. And but I'm still here serving God and continuing to work as led by. At any given time, even right now, when I'm going through pain or anyone going through pain, I guess there are so many things that come to mind. Pretty much most of them are not pretty things. It's just the end of the road, the end of life. And pretty much anger comes to mind all the time, resentment, bitterness, and you guard your heart and you toughen your heart. But then most of the things that I went through, in the midst of all those voices that are there was also this one voice that through this, I am refining you and making you so that I could use you, because I am the one who called you. Trust me, that voice was very confusing in each of the circumstances I was going through, especially the deep pain. But I knew clearly it was God's voice. So I have come to learn that really God refines us to use us in many ways. There are things that are of me that had to die for God to be seen and live. And so there are some things that going through pain, going through torture, going through suffering, shape you to see God differently. So currently, I can sit here and say, I know that I can go through challenges, but God is a deliverer. I would have not known He is a deliverer until I was in such a situation where I needed Him to deliver me. I can sit here and say that God is a forgiving God, because even when I dishonor Him, He forgave me, and He allowed me to forgive other people to be healthy right now. I couldn't have been testifying of that right now. I wouldn't be saying that God is a healer right now if I had not gone through the situation that was so heavy to my body, all the torture and the bad things that were done to me, that now I am here healed. I had fractures all over when I was being tortured. I had all these my wounds that you can see on my leg that have recovered. I mean, it's just take God, to point out that He is a healer. And not only a healer physically, emotionally, I can smile and be helping other people all over the world because I'm healed emotionally. I would have not known that had I not gone through that. I would have not known that He's merciful, because some of the people that really did those things have seen their lives change, and they are really godly people right now. And as a result of going to share with them the good news and the gospel of forgiveness. So it would have not happened if I would have not gone through that. So I can sit here and say, okay, God can use these bad things to make Himself be known as a healer, a deliverer, a forgiving, a provider. I would have not known how He would provide for me to be alive today, to make my way out of the situation and the disaster that I was into. So it has made me know God more. And then one thing I've come to learn is we are not refined by air nor water. When we talk about being refined by fire, it may not be that fire, but what you're going through could be the fire that refines you to have that big heart that is refined to be used by God. I personally would desire any cheap, easy, quick cut life, but I don't think my journey with God was not meant for like that. He refined me. He made me know Him more. He made me now sit here, and regardless of what I hear, regardless of what I go through, I confidently say I don't have a reverse gear towards my faith. It's one gear going forward till death do us part. I would have not made it if some of the things that I had to learn in prison, in a torture, would have not happened to my life. So I've known that I can forgive better. I've known that I can understand people's life better. When someone say they are suffering or they lack, I know what lack is about. And because I even lack people who could comfort me. So I can easily go comfort them because I do really know and understand what they mean and what they are going through at that time. It's because I went through that. It was part of refining. And also, even though at the moment of all that, it was very hard to tangibly see God. But I also saw God in almost all of these prisons. When I shared my story with some of the prisoners and you see tears come to their eyes and say, oh, I want to have some faith that when I die, I can have a place. That would have not happened had I not gone into prison. There are people, for example, in Eritrea, the kind of torture they were giving us is they would put us into a container that they're using to ship things from the port. And they would pile us, people like over 100, where you are stuck with each other. And they would open the top of the container, and then they place it out, And during the day, the temperature goes up to 130. So it's very hot and you're just there all day. And then at night, because there's no cloud, the temperature drops so low. And so then they come after 24 hours to check who has survived. And in the midst of that, you are stuck with other people and some of them are dead. Now, the voices they make when they were dying are the voices I don't think I would hear when I'm outside. The voices of you hear them connecting with God just before they die. And those are the things that are a joy to me. And the voices are still fresh in me to hear people say, God, thank you, I'm coming to you. I would have not had the opportunity to hear those had I not been to such situation. It might be painful to witness someone die, but it has given me hope that after this life, there is another life better. Regardless of what people have done, they can have that life, even the last moment. And I can rest assured that I am clear that that happened because I witnessed people say things like that. So despite the pain that goes with it, there's so much joy. It's just most people, we do not want to see ourselves growing when there's pain. And so what goes to my mind when things like that happen, I've come to learn that what can I do? Can I see the opportunity to hear and see God in the midst of suffering? He is there. You know, what brings me the greatest joy is that this life we have here is vanity. The things we have is vanity. That there is life beyond here, and it will be forever. And anybody has the opportunity to attain it. That brings me joy, regardless of someone's opinion. There's a way that God draws us to Himself, whether you are a child at any age. And that powerful working of God, that He is constantly pursuing us to have a better life after this, is bringing joy and excitement to me. Because my life, I've seen things that had happened to my life that potentially could have taken that joy. But what made me hang into the joy I had was that even after that could have taken my life, there was something better. There was something better. One time in prison, I was let go while my 4 other colleagues were shot in front of me because I said, I am so excited that you're going to kill me, because after this, I will no longer go through the suffering I've gone through. I will no longer be in front of you. I will no longer go through this other pain. And thank you so much for promoting me to go to that life. The moment I said that statement, they spared me, instead continue to torture me, of which I was kind of like, I wish I wouldn't have said that. But because I was so joyful that they're promoting me and I'll never go through that pain again, they chose to leave me while my 4 colleagues were pleading, please, let us go, have a family, I will not do this again. And they shot them. To me, I was rejoicing. So I've learned that that life is what brings joy to me. A few people who have seen me in the past and ask, how come you have gone to these many places, many countries, and sometimes we've seen you meeting with some prominent people, some leaders of the countries, and it's hard for some people to believe, but all those opportunity to meet these people came as a result of the pain that I had to go through after being thrown in the prison in their country. And then you come out of the prison, and then you persistently continue to go to the point where you go to the prison to just visit prison, but to connect and forgive. Then that story continue to spread to the point where you get to meet with the regional leaders, and then you get to hear them say, continue to do what God has led you to do. Now, it is hard to tell people that even through pain, God can open opportunity. I would have not known that God would open opportunity for me to go to these many countries, meet some of the leaders. Some of them I would not necessarily want to meet because of their reputation and because of their what they do to their people, which when I meet with them, that's one of the message to tell them about repentance and tell them about how God would see it differently from what they do. So if I had not gone, or when I had not gone through those circumstances, God would have not opened opportunity to go and to meet these different people and to have these many communities reached. I did not see it that way in the beginning or in the midst of all my suffering, but to see and to feel and to know that the testimony of how you came out and how you've gone back opened the opportunity. It allowed me right now to see that it was God. Otherwise I would have not. And even right now it's something that I rejoice. And I'm glad that I have assurance that I would not go through that life again. Because I remember when I came out of the prison, my last time prison in Iraq, when Iraq was invaded, and that's when I was rescued, when I was under there, and I heard God's voice that I would not allow you go through that. So that has given me more confidence to just continue going, because I know I have assurance that I would not be going. But then it has paved ways to many hundreds of people, even here in the United States, that are joining Unite for Africa for a mission trip to go and make a difference. It's time to make a difference, and we make a difference even with some tough circumstances we do not want to be a part of, but it is an opportunity. So we tend to see an opportunity even where there seems to be no opportunity to be seen.